What a lovely, precious dream. Mm. To be young, gifted.
All right, my young ones, the floor is yours. Happy Women's History Month, Black Girl
Open your
Magic.
heart to what I mean. To what I mean.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope you guys have had a good day so far. Welcome to the San Diego Urban League and SDCOE celebration of Black Excellence Session 2. In honor of Women's History Month, we bring to you Black Girl Magic. Just want to have the land acknowledgement before we get started. We'd like to take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. I'm currently joined today online from my home, which is on the traditional unceded territory of the Kumeyaay people in San Diego. All right, with that being said, good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Henderson, and as a soon-to-be graduating high school senior, I'm honored to be one of your moderators for today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Malik Palmore. I'm currently a business undergraduate, and I'm excited to be your moderator of this great celebration of Black excellency in our community. We have four wonderful hour planned for you today. We have four amazing guests that have taken their time out of their day to be here with us. But before we start, we have a very special presentation of spoken word from Sierra of Mission Hills High School titled Shh. Take it away, Sierra.
Do you hear that? The sound of another father dying, the mother trying to keep her family together after yet another traffic stop went too far. He should have never got out of the car. When Keenan Anderson should be resting in peace, he is left in vain, knowing racism is the only thing left to blame.
From the south to the north, we face racism since birth. Court cases like Plessy v. Ferguson, ruling separate but equal, denying our worth.
But we aren't equal. They keep taking my people.
There's a reason why, when a Black man walks with a hood on, he's suspicious.
But when a white man takes 10 Black lives to keep the white power alive, he's not malicious. Just another person trying to inspire someone else to fire.
17. I'm 17, but still unseen. Not him, though. He's gone mainstream.
Trayvon Martin has been 17 for 11 years, and yet we are still wiping our tears.
As our tears fall, the only sound in a silent room, the threat of our lives taken looms. With this cycle of violence that remains, the silence that pains. Day after day, we stay the same, waiting for something to change, and trusting those that pose as an ally. As they ask for the N-word pass, then they talk with sass, those stolen words, saying, that's so ghetto, like they know what it takes, one day in the ghetto till they break.
Do you know what it's like to be disliked? When I walk through the halls, the silence that follows, leaving me hollow, the hush that falls in a room. What's the difference between being racist behind my back and using your words to attack at the fact that I'm Black?
Shh, do you hear that?
The Black girl's coming. Thank you.
That was incredible. Excellence on display. Let's start with our four guests, Alice Smith Cooper, Dr. Tina King, Loni Moran, and Jay Trevitz. We would love to have the four of you give a brief introduction to our audience, starting with the wisdom of Reverend Alice, please.
Thank you very kindly. I am overjoyed and absolutely held in awe at being present here with you all today. Some of you I have met personally, others I have met in this amazing digital manner. But I am absolutely thrilled to be a part of this assemblage and for what you are considering to be Black excellence. I'm extremely humble. I am a product of Southern California. I was born in Santa Barbara. I'll tell you, in 1940. I was raised in Riverside after only a couple of years of living in Santa Barbara. But I have a long-standing love for the city because my mother lived there for until 2 years before she passed away, and she passed away at age 97 just 2 years ago. So I've been going to Santa Barbara for years, but Riverside is home for me in terms of my upbringing. And then there's Los Angeles, where I went in the 60s at the height of the civil rights movement as we understood it at that time. It wasn't the beginning of it, but it was a crescendo. People have been fighting for the kind of recognition and understanding that we are still fighting for a lot of years, a lot of years. And I'm delighted to say that we are still here holding the banner of victory because we are indeed victorious, no matter what it looks like. So I want to tell you that I am an activist for civil, emotional, spiritual rights for everyone because we are all one. That's my fullest understanding of life as we currently experience it. No matter how they may slice this cake, we're all one cake. You get a different, you might get a little different angle on it. You might have a few different flavors. You might be a different color, but we're all here to do one thing, and that is learn how to live on this planet together in harmony and balance and peace and love and joy. So that's how I'd like to introduce myself at this moment. If there's more that you need to hear from me, yes, my basic discipline is nursing. I'm a registered nurse. I am an ordained minister. I've been given the title of Poet Laureate by the Military Museum in Balboa Park. I'm called a cultural icon. I'm not exactly sure what a cultural icon does, but maybe I look like one because this is how I like to show up. But I can show up in any costume, under any title, because I'm an actress and I can costume for any occasion. But today for you, this is who I want you to see. So thank you very much for having me here and being such amazing hosts. And thank you so much for your spoken word. Touched my heart. Thank you. Is that enough for now?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That was an excellent introduction. Can we also move on to Miss Murray? Please, if you could give us a couple words for your introduction. Miss Murray.
Looks like she's frozen.
Yeah, it seems like we're having a couple of technical difficulties. Can I ask you, Miss Cooper, in the meantime, you were referred to as, I believe, the golden brown fairy godmother. Can you give us more insight on that?
The reference has several different meanings. We relate to skin color in our culture in a lot of amazing ways. Many times they're not positive. As I grew up as a little girl, I was the fairest skinned person in my family. And I was given names that just made me cringe. So I wanted to reframe that. And because of my experiences as a nurse and a chaplain, and sometimes people started to think of me as someone who brought them comfort. And I always thought of it as a fairy godmother as someone who could bring everybody comfort, no matter their color, their culture, their age, their gender preference, or any excitement around any of those issues. That a fairy godmother could handle all of it because she had fairy dust, and she could sprinkle it and smile her smile and give her joy and somehow give peace to situations that were not peaceful. So when my first grandchild was born, and he just turned 40 this past week, I was on a plane to come to see him for the first time, and this story came to me, just popped into my head, and it was called John Jason Meets the Golden Brown Fairy Godmother. Well, my grandson's name is Dewan, so John, and the Golden Brown Fairy Godmother had to be me. So that's how she was born, and the story continues because she's still here, and she's still offering that same kind of comfort to those who stand in need. So the Golden Brown Fairy Godmother, GBFG for short, because your tongue can get trapped in all of that, all of those syllables. But it's a title of endearment, and sometimes it's a summons for assistance. So I'm known as the Golden Brown Fairy Godmother because I love to bring the joy, spread the joy, share the joy. And if you don't have joy, that's fine. So
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Miss Trebitz, would you like to give us an introduction for yourself as well?
Sure. I mean, I find it so hard to follow after that joyful introduction and words there. Thank you. And thank you again for the spoken word as well. It was truly incredible. My name is Jay. I oversee partner management and strategy for Westbrook Media, which is Will Smith's production company. I've been there for about 3 years now, and I absolutely love it. Before that, I have had my hands in every single cookie jar that you can imagine in production. I'm very greedy like that. I like to do a little bit of everything. I've been in front of the camera. I've been behind the camera. I have done commercials, film, television shows as an actor, and then I switched to producing a while ago. I started producing short films and started a production company called 917 Films because I moved here from New York. And I am an East Coaster at heart, always have been, always will be. Thank you. I see. Yes, thank you. Yeah, East Coast. That's what's up. So I love all aspects of the entertainment business, sort of like what Ms. Cooper was saying. Like, I love the ability to show up in many different ways and also all different shapes and forms and places.
You're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I have no audio from.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh, sorry. And so, yeah, I am a big proponent of fake it till you make it. And kind of just being your own champion for your own success. I have absolutely zero credentials to be doing the job that I have today. I did not go to school for it. I did not train for it. It is something I absolutely fell into. And I just had the utmost faith in myself and my abilities and being able to speak and connect to people. And that's how I got to where I'm at now. And that's me.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting to hear, actually. Can I ask one question before we move on? What is one of your favorite commercials you remember producing or helping to produce?
One of my favorite commercials that I didn't produce commercials. I was actually in commercials as an actor. And I think really funny, one of my first commercials that I ever did was Burlington Coat Factory. And it was just really funny because it was like a great juxtaposition of like comedy and drama. And I have a flair for being a little dramatic from time to time. So I enjoyed getting to flex my comedic muscles. And for producing though, I didn't produce it, but we at Westbrook produced King Richard. And so being on the marketing team for that was an amazing experience to see that come to light.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's excellent. King Richard, I also love that movie, but that's amazing. So now we're gonna move on to some questions that will be open-ended to both of you guys to answer. So our first one that we have for you today is tell us your story and how you, if you could highlight some of the people in your life that you saw as assets as a young person that gave you, got you where you are today. So either one of you guys can start it off, whoever's comfortable starting.
You've been kind enough to let me go first before, so I certainly would appreciate it if you would take the lead, if you don't mind.
Sure. This is a really hard question for me, because I struggled a lot in school. I did not fit into the schools I went to, and I had to build my own community to kind of get me through. So in terms of like a mentor, aside from my parents and, my amazing cousin, Stephen, who's on this Zoom right now, I really think that I actually had to muster a lot of faith in myself to kind of push forward. I think that growing up, I went to a high school that was not very diverse. I was one of the only Black women there, and I really struggled to find my footing to fit in. It was only when I left and went to college that I was able to really find teachers that could kind of like connect with me and who I was. But I really, not everyone is, not everyone is really lucky to have a mentor growing up. And I was one of those people that didn't necessarily have one. I just kind of had to push forward with my own faith and determination to get me here. So, Miss Cooper?
I've had a lot of mentors. I didn't know they were mentors. I thought they were my grandma and my aunties and my cousins and my uncles, and didn't have any brothers and sisters. So I'm an only child. I'm still trying to grow through that one, because if you have a sibling, you have an opportunity to learn relational skills that you don't get if you don't have that. And even though I attached myself to every other family in my community that had kids. It didn't matter to me if they had 1 or 5 or 15. It didn't matter. I would show up at anybody's dinner table, never considering that they had other mouths to feed or anything like that. But my parents worked in the evenings, and they made sure I was taken care of. But sometimes what they had to eat, I didn't really want, and I wanted to play, and I wanted to have people to talk to. So I'd go around the neighborhood. So I got to be the neighborhood kid who showed up. And my grandmother told me years later, she said, "Girl, we were scraping to try to feed you, and here you are going to other people's house. Wait a minute. Did you think about it?" No, I didn't. All I thought about was I wanted more company. I wanted other people to play with. I wanted people to acknowledge me, and I wanted to acknowledge them, even if we were fighting over the jacks and who couldn't do double dutch, because I didn't do double dutch very well. So I attached myself to a lot of people. And then there was my auntie, Aunt Bessie, who, unlike my grandmother kind of fell out of love with the fellowship with the church. She supported it, but she didn't go. And my Aunt Bessie went, and she saw to it that I went. And so from a very young age, almost like little Stevie, who we saw earlier, I was going to Park Avenue Baptist Church. My grandmother, she wasn't even going to go to the corner. She stood in the she stood in her gate, saw me walk to the corner, which was like 2 houses down, and saw me turn right. And then Aunt Bessie stood at the end of the block to receive me at the end of the block, because the church was at the end, the next cross street over. So everybody saw me going to church. Mrs. Espinosa, Mrs. Vargas, I turned the corner, Mrs. Burrell, everybody knew who you were in those days. And so I had all of these people watching me and watching me grow. And because I learned to speak early and I learned to read early, and my grandfather made sure that I learned to speak clearly, I got a lot of speaking roles, such as the treasurer for Dorcas Circle. I mean, come on, we were 7 years old. What kind of money did we have to be treasurer over? None. But I was the treasurer, so I had to give a treasurer's report. It wasn't anything to report on, but it was an opportunity to stand in front of my peers and speak about something that I knew nothing about, just like you said, Ms. Day. And talk about the things that we wanted to do if we had money, because it was a missionary Baptist church. So we had a chance to learn about things that we didn't even know about. That was the kind of support that I had. And then there was my peers in school, because I was labeled early on as being smart because I talked, I read, I didn't mind sharing my information with anybody. So they assumed that I knew stuff, and I was asked to speak. That meant my teachers were supportive. Now, this was the reality on the east side of Riverside, California at that time, that the school that I went to, which was primarily Latino and Black, and we did have some Asian people in the community, but all the teachers were white. The principal was white until I got to the second grade, third grade, and Mrs. Lott came. Mrs. Lott came from Texas, and Mrs. Lott was the savior of my cultural experience where school was concerned, because she saw me as someone who had talent, and she exposed me to things that maybe might not have been exposed to before, but certainly she encouraged me. So she was one of my first encouragers insofar as academics was concerned. Now, socially and spiritually, you got a lot of support for that in your home and in your community, but educationally, she was my first supporter. And I've always appreciated that. She took me aside. She told me, "You've got promise." And I'm looking for that promise to come forward. I didn't know what she was talking about, but I remember the words. So that was my first. Is that good?
Yes, thank you very much. We seem to have Miss Cooper just left the room, but I believe there's we can move on to the next question in the meantime. But Miss Trevis, would you like to provide any insight on your first mentor or anyone who's pushed you in a certain direction?
I think teachers at my college were particularly wonderful, for sure. I went to Marymount Manhattan College in New York City, and I was involved in a lot of different theater productions there. And I do remember the one most poignant thing that was said to me one time was, I was backstage getting ready to go on, and one of my teachers said, he was like, "Just enjoy this moment, because nothing gold ever stays." And that's something I've kind of just taken with me to this day, because I love that. And I think it's really great and kind of keeps me grounded and in the moment, just to remember that. And so I'm always thankful to that teacher for saying that to me.
Miss Murray, is your sound working?
I think so. I can hear you guys now.
Yes, it works. All right. So we're gonna have you just introducing yourself and just give insight into who you are and what you're involved in, and then we'll ask you the question that we ask everyone else. So just go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Lonnie Murray, and I'm obviously not well versed at Zoom for some reason. I am a Major League Baseball Players Association certified player agent. I have been doing it for about the last almost 20 years now. I was the first woman to get certified by the MLBPA and have been the only until this last year. I do not wear that as a badge of honor, so let's be clear. I think it's unfortunate, And it does not make me special. It just makes me more tolerant and gritty. But I hope to impact others and show them that if I can, anyone can. And that pretty much sums it up for me.
All right, thank you. So we just want you to tell us your story, and like if you could highlight any people in your life that you saw as like assets or mentors as a young person that like got you to where you are today. That'd be nice if you'd share that.
You know, I was fortunate to be able to catch two of the other speakers a moment ago and talk and be able to listen to the impact of family members and different teachers. My upbringing was a little bit different. I do think that I'm a product of a much larger village as a foster kid. I can't say that I had one teacher in first grade and one in third grade that encouraged me to write and to live outside of circumstance and to be confident in self, which was a bit difficult because I grew up in a predominantly white area. In fact, I don't think that I went to school with other Black kids until I was in the 6th grade and moved to a different city. But my dad, we did have a relationship, and he always made it very clear that we were Black. And I don't know what everyone else's background is. My mother is white, but we were raised to understand that there's no such thing as mixed. That's just my upbringing. It may not be others, but what I can tell you is that it prepared me to understand that it prepared me to understand and to be equipped to deal with the things that people would say later in coming up. And so therefore, there was really nothing that was weaponized against me that impacted me, because my dad fortunately prepared me for that. And I try to extend that on to other young people. When you're not always around examples for how to deal in situations that may be upsetting, self-awareness is the most powerful thing that you could possibly have. And that is the one thing that I do accept about myself. I accept all my flaws and everything, like, again, not being able to use Zoom today and being late for you. And so moving forward in life, I had someone say to me that you have a choice to live your life in spite of or because of. And I don't remember who said that to me, but it stuck. And I chose to live my life in spite of any obstacles. And when I learned to not be embarrassed about my circumstance, when I learned that just because someone was maybe on paper better educated, and maybe someone is going to be smarter than me, it didn't mean that I was less than. It just meant that I have a different set of tools in different areas. And, you know, when we can be comfortable and confident enough to know that we possess something that was uniquely given to us, then it just makes you that much more powerful. I've never sat in a room, and I've sat in plenty of rooms with some pretty incredible people, but I've gotten to a stage in my life where, again, they may have a ton of qualifications that I can't even touch and that I absolutely can sit in awe of, but I know that I'm sitting there because I have something to contribute. And if I would have understood that sooner in life, I'd be a whole lot further along. And so I would hope that as someone that speaks to young people, that is like the number one thing that I try to pay forward, because we will save a whole lot of time with less insecurity and just accepting who we are as individuals. And we don't have to have it figured out. We don't have to know what we're going to spend the rest of our life doing. We don't have to compare ourselves to other. We just have to be the best version of ourselves and what we can possibly be. And in owning that, flaws and all.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. That was a great response. So I have a question that will pertain to all of you. Because I know Miss Trevitz and then Miss Murray, you guys talked about going through your experience, like kind of have to rely on yourself. And then Miss Cooper, if I'm not mistaken, I think you said that you were an only child. So my question kind of revolves around, do you have any advice or guidance for how young Black women can rely on themselves to find their own route to success? Because I know a lot of young people, not only growing up, it might be hard for them because they're figuring out who they are and like what they want to do. But especially as young Black women, that just adds more to, because there's less people that may understand what you're going through and what your struggle is. So just like any advice you can give to them, relying on themselves to find their success.
I'll speak to that first, because it's already been said in ways. And the way that I would like to put it is, trust your instincts. Trust your innermost being. You have been created perfect with everything that you need. We ask people to get an education, but what we don't tell them is that we already have it inside of us. When you go to these educational institutions, the basic reason for us to be there is for those educators to help us bring out what it is that's in us. In other words, help us identify our gifts and to build upon those, whatever they may be. And they're all different, but we all have them. So trust that you know what you need to know. And if you have a doubt, find someone that you trust to try to help you figure it out. I can't tell you who that would be because I don't know what your circumstances are. But for me, I was able to attract people in my life who identified for me, helped me to identify, because I didn't know. I mean, and nobody told me that I knew, so I didn't look inside. I looked outside because that was what we were trained to do at that time. But we're encouraging you, I believe, I've heard enough of this to believe that we're encouraging you to look within and to surround yourself with the kind of information that will help you be assured of who you are, that you have a basic truth from which you operate. You have a basic philosophy. For me, it was built upon things that I found in the Word of God. I'm seeing it now in lots of different places. People are spouting it out like they created it. It's okay with me as long as you get that you are your source of power. It's inside of you. And you get to bring it out in the ways that your DNA and your culture and the things that have helped to form you will allow you to do it. But just know it's there for you. And yes, in this generation, you have the opportunity to know that you don't have to have all the credentials. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad to hear you both say that, because I've just gone through a period of stress because I've done something that I didn't have the credentials to do. But I was so grateful that my basic philosophy lends me to prayer, which opens me to be able to hear what my intuition is and what is going to guide me properly and positively, so that even though it took me 5 years to get over my fears because I didn't know what I was doing, but we just did it. Last week, we just finished doing it and we got great reviews. And it wasn't because I was sure of it. It wasn't because I knew how to do it. It was because I trusted, and a team came together to help me. So the other thing I want to say is that there are people who will help you, because people will see your light. If you don't dim it And even if you do try to dim it, even if you try to turn out the light, I got news for you. It doesn't happen. See what's happening here? People are smiling. Uh-uh. Nobody can take that away from you. You can give it to them if you choose, but it belongs to you. Your joy is yours. So the joy of the Lord is what I would say is your strength. And that strength you can build on to do anything that you'd like to do. And it comes from your innermost knowing, but it also comes from the people around you that will support you and encourage you. Got a few head nods. That would be an amen in my world. So okay. I'll pass it on to you, the next person.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we have encapsulated what needs to be done. And it is really that looking inside and not outside. Like right now in today's society, we have social media and we have all these things for all this external validation, right? But at the end of the day, you're left with yourself and you need to love yourself, and it's all going to come from within, right? There was some statistic that I'm totally going to butcher that I heard the other day, but it was something like 60% of white men will apply for a job that they're not qualified for, but 30% of Black women will only apply for that job unless they check 90% of the boxes. And that really hit me, right? And that's kind of something that I have tried to like kind of fight against my whole life. Because like I said earlier on the Zoom, I am not qualified on paper for the job that I have. But I really, truly believe that there is something inside of us that you have to summon. You have to summon that fake it till you make it. You have to be loud. You have to be proud, and you have to put yourself out there. You're going to make mistakes, but there are so many opportunities in the obstacles, right? There are so many opportunities in all these obstacles, and that's growth that comes from it. And so, I'm so excited for you all on the Zoom, this younger generation. You guys are so smart and so grounded in ways that like my generation is just not. And I'm just really excited to see everything that you all do. But like the one piece of advice I just have to impress upon you all is to just go for it. Like, it doesn't matter. You go to college, you get one degree. You don't have to have your life mapped out. When I was like 21, I was so stressed out all the time because I was like, I went to college, I have this theater degree, I have all this money, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't do anything with theater now at all. I've created a whole different world for myself, and you guys will too.
I want to be clear. When earlier, I was not being self-deprecating by saying I don't wear it as a badge of honor. I don't wear it as a badge of honor because it doesn't mean that I was the first one qualified. It means that there was some opportunity that presented that someone before me was not afforded. Mine happened to come in the relationships one relationship that I had. And when we as Black women especially walk into certain spaces, we always have an opportunity. It's a question of how comfortable we are within our own space to seize that opportunity, or to sometimes fall victim to the environment that we may not feel welcome in. And so one of the things that I would really like to encourage us to maybe first do is also be there more for each other. I think that we get caught up a lot in all of us at different times because there are so few of us afforded the opportunity or the experience that we think only one of us can. And that couldn't be further from the truth, especially when we're there for each other. I would also hope that the young men on this realize that just because as Black women, we are strong and have a reputation for maybe being able to take care of ourselves doesn't mean we don't need you to be there for us and to speak when you see something wrong. I may look like I've got the battle under control, but it sure feels good when someone else steps up for me. And it changes the narrative a little bit. And so I think that that's where I'd like to leave it. I can't say that enough, even as I sit in rooms now. Even my own husband is guilty of at times saying, well, you got it. And it's like, I don't always want to have it. I may be really good at it, but at the same time, there's something to be said when we do it for each other, when it's not always us as the Black woman being what society may think is a stereotypical Black woman, when I am individually just me, and I know the difference between right and wrong, and we all do. So.
Yes. Yes. There's a comfort and a palpable support that comes when we do things together. When like-minded people, that term has been going around for a long time, but it means a great deal to me. When you come together with like minds and open hearts and a willingness to not be competitive, but be collaborative. There's no room for jealousy. There's no room for any of that. We don't have time for that. You break your ranks if you let that sort of thing move in between you. And therefore you postpone your victory when you break your ranks. So hold on to each other, lift each other up. If you have to squabble and get over it. But the main thing is get over it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, Jay said something when Jay brought up the statistic about, white men 90% of white men will apply for jobs that they're underqualified for, while, 30% of Black women, it's 30%.
Will only apply if they meet like 9% of the criteria. Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with the message that we're also trying to send, which is fearing the rejection and not wanting to fight another fight. So it's easier to, like Dr. Cooper said, dim your shine, because I'd rather not, it's something else that I have to fight for. And that, when you said that, when both of you were talking, that's what it made me think about, is that's another example of how dimming our shine and fearing the rejection, which stops us from walking the path that maybe we were intended to walk. I think that it's important for people to understand, especially young people. I fear stuff every day. I didn't know what I was getting on this Zoom for. I didn't really know. They said we were going to talk about one thing, but are we really? It's like all the things that each day we walk into, not knowing what we're getting into. But when, like Dr. Cooper said, when we can just step into it and go with it and allow our spirit to shine through, knowing that we're walking with intention and truth and honesty, nothing can go wrong with that. You don't have to have the answers. You don't have to sound perfect. You just have to be your unique, authentic self. That's it. Everything else comes. I promise it comes.
What I hear you saying is just show up, right? Show up.
I did not intend to be on this path. Let's be clear, okay? My journey was about survival, not thriving. And so, but by being able to trust in whether you believe in God or a higher power, I am telling you that I am only here and continue to be here because I know that I was guided. And not necessarily to be an agent, that's not at all what I'm saying, but I'm not statistically supposed to be here at all. And so what's happened is that because I continue to show up, because I chose not to walk a path that I know that God did not intend for me, with substances or doing things that even other people around me felt they had no choice but to do. I didn't, because like Jay just reminded us, I showed up and I knew that I was destined for something other than what is just in today. There was something else for me, but it's not just me, it's all of us. Each of us were created divinely for purpose. We don't have to have that figured out. We just have to walk in it, like Dr. Cooper said.
Well, thank you for giving me that honorary degree. I'll accept it that way, because
You are so regal.
Well, bless
and
you.
Beautiful, and yes.
I appreciate that, and I give all the honor to where it comes from. It comes through me. I tell you a short story. Would you mind? It has to do with the region where you young people are growing up now. It has to do with me taking a job at Palomar College in 1971, and we've titled it "Teaching While Black." So 1971 was a time of great turmoil, and now out of the turmoil, the government is stepping in to say, okay, now we have to do something to balance out these inequities. And so in the world of health education, there were not a lot of African American or nurses or people of color in nursing. And so the administration at that time had made monies available to educational systems and different settings to educate more people of color, and they gave them money to do that. I had an Associate of Arts degree. I was working on a bachelor's degree, but I had a family and, all of that other stuff. And I wasn't working at it, steadfastly. I was just plodding along. But my husband saw that there was this job that was available at Palomar College, and they were looking for minorities, and I didn't have the degree. And so I wasn't even thinking about applying, but he said, think about it. You are a social activist. You're a nurse. You've got good experience. He said, you're an actress. You don't have any roles to play on a stage, but you might have a very important role to play in terms of helping other students like yourself, or men, because we weren't, recruiting a lot of men into nursing either, get a seat at the table. He convinced me. And so I made my way to Palomar College, got some introductions throughout some other people that I knew in nursing, and got an interview with the faculty. The head of the faculty was an undercover activist in her own right. She was a nurse. She had been in the army. She had served in Vietnam. She grew up in Iowa. What did she know about anything except that she saw someone who she felt could help integrate her staff and could be resilient enough to stay the course? Now, I didn't have the education, so they assigned me introductory nursing position, but I had to get my master's degree in 2 years. Mind you, I've got kids, I got a husband, I'm traveling 100 miles a day round trip. And I have an office mate who I dearly loved, and she loved me. We were friends until she passed away. She had the same opportunity, but she had 4 years to get her master's. I had to get mine in 2. So that just lets you see the kind of situation that I was operating under, not to mention that I was not welcomed by most of the people there, including the secretary. Now, if you got a secretary that's up against you, you got some brain too. So all of these things notwithstanding, and now I'm taking my all-white students into all-white hospitals. I'm the one leading them, don't look like them. They're not used to seeing nobody looks like me, and they are obedient and respectful, and I'm not meeting with that in the community very often. So there's a lot of terminology that we use for all of that. And it's heavy, but I was determined that my activism, my heart for activism, because that's a part of what's inside of me. I don't have any control over it. None. It's still there. I'm still doing it at age 82. I can't help myself. So just so you know, if it's inside of you and you are responsive to it, it will bless you, but it might not bless you right away. So I had a lot of pressure to stand up under, but you know what I did? I did what my grandmama said. She said, girl, diamonds are made out of pressure. She said, I see you as a diamond. You haven't hit all the pressure you got to get yet. I said, oh, is there more? So yes, there was more. But you know what? I leaned into it. And because of the support that I got from the head of the department and my office mate, I was able to put some information together beyond nursing. Now, mind you, I learned how to teach what they wanted me to teach because it was basically communication. And I also learned about holistic health, holistic healing. These measures were very low on anybody's priority list at that time in the 70s. It's much higher now for what I'm grateful. But I was able to do the first holistic health conference there on that campus. I was able to also produce the first cultural event, African American History Month, on that campus. They didn't hire me to do that. I got serious criticism from my dean. You're not focused, he said. I said, well, okay. I'm not focused. Okay, I'm not focused on my students who I'm teaching every day. I'm not focused on my family who I take care of every day. I'm not focused on school when I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning writing these. Anyway, long story shorter, I got my degree. My health suffered. I'm not going to tell you that it was easy. My health did suffer. But when you look at the pictures of the graduates from the 70s of that school of nursing, and you look at those pictures of the graduates today, we did our job. Now, I can't tell you that they ever had another African-American instructor. I don't know that they did. They may have had one or two, but I didn't go back to check because that wasn't part of my job. My job was to stay there as long as I did, and I was there for 7 years, do what I could do, and then move on to the next assignment. But my position in my story is I'm telling you my story so that you don't get it twisted. There is a cost, but it's not a cost that you cannot pay if you step in faith, because you will be supported. So if you want to hear more of that story, we're gonna make it into a play. It's gonna be like a choreo poem, because the more I think about it, it's like, oh, you really do that, didn't you? Yeah. The time will come. So to be continued.
Wow. I'd like to thank you all. And honestly, it did, as soon as you started talking about the being in a all-white hospital full of a bunch of white people, it nearly painted a picture in my head. It was like a movie. That's incredible. But I'd like to thank you all for attending today. And we have to wrap up pretty soon, but I would like to ask all of you if there's any last words or final message you'd like to give our viewers or Black women or Black individuals in general.
I would add, because I'm sure that everyone is on Instagram and you're watching those memes and stuff. And one of the things that I want to encourage you to maybe be cautious of is the messaging that seems to be out there about the fine line between self-care and hard work. There's a lot of messaging that would imply on social media that working hard is not as important as taking care of yourself. But it's almost trickled into a category that's encouraging you to believe that any level of hard work or any amount of pressure isn't good. And I've seen it in even talking to my own kids who are grown and work hard, because I beat them when they were young, just joking. But so all of us have worked really, really hard in our respective areas. There are no shortcuts. You cannot skip process. You cannot think that you're going to be half-ass and get full reward. It does not happen. And so be careful when you're on social media and talking to your friends and, girl, I got to take care of me, and they wanted me to work too hard. You know what? Figure out your why and go for it. Absolutely go for it.
Thank you. Do I have enough time to share with you a not very long poem? Because I'm not looking at a timer.
Of course you do.
Okay. It's called Grandmother Africa. Lest we forget, we come from a deep lineage of regality and excellence. And so, Grandmother Africa, we salute you. You birthed and suckled and reared your brilliant children, was unable to keep some by your side, to keep the home fires burning. Many were stolen, sailed away from your arms richly black to form the fortunes of the earth, build empires, give birth to cultures diasporic, centers to give honor to African genius in Moscow, Paris, Jakarta, LA, New York, Peoria, Illinois, San Diego, California, Tokyo. Cultural food cooked up like collard greens, okra, yams, fufu, also known as grits, barbecue, sweet potato pie, red soda water, tasted to the tune of the blues, jazz, hummed, moaned, shouted gospel style, creating the science of the peanut, the pyramid, the cotton gin, the traffic light, blood plasma, the GPS, and so very much more. Broad noses, sparkling eyes, full luscious lips, not to mention those rounded hips and hair with that familiar kink. God's light shining from the souls of Black folk, sent from Cyrus to this experiment called Earth. Together we stand, forward we move, boldly facing century 22, lifting high our faithful hopes in the sound of the dance, the words of the symphony, the rhythm of the breath of the poet in the latent artist which sleeps in the breast of so many of your children. Grandmother Africa, sweetly, solemnly, respectfully, we salute you, embrace you and our relatives flung to the four winds. Your children from all corners of the universe are coming together to know and care for you. In your elder song, breathe deeply, knowing your family loves you and will continue creating worlds upon worlds, within worlds, remembering our heroes, our sheroes, kings, queens, high priests, all your blood, our blood, and never forgetting you, Grandmother Africa. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Blessings to you, blessings to you. My pleasure to be here.
All right, I think we're going to wrap things up here. So we have our next session celebrating Black excellence in April on the 25th. That's going to be a hybrid session at Crawford High School Theater San Diego. So part of it will be in person, part of it will be virtual. And that will be our student Excellence panel. But I just want to say thank you so much for our guests for taking time out of your day to be here and share your stories. I really appreciate you guys' thoughtful and like really insightful responses to our questions. And also thank you to our spoken word performers from Mission Hills. I really loved the spoken word, and that was just a great way to start off our panel here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all are fire. There was a whole lot of Black girl magic going on. Oh my goodness. My two poets up there.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sierra, Kyra, Jay Trevitz, Lonnie Murray, Reverend Elise Smith Cooper. Thank you so much. Again, you've made this space amazing. We are going to share this with the world. It'll be on our website. It'll be shared and passed along for all. The story continues. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you. And of course, we have to leave with a little music. Hey, Golden.